Okay, Ronnie, can drop.
Julius Malema, thank you so very much for giving us your time here on Checkpoint. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
You know, Julius, in the lead up to the elections, I read your manifesto, and I was quite impressed by a couple of things. One of them was ideas that you had with regards to local economies and how people grow their economies and run economies in communities. But when I went to the rallies, your focus was Jacob Zuma, always. Why is it that you didn't share with the people some of these great ideas, but rather focused on Zuma and his failings?
Well, you'll appreciate that I spoke for not less than 30 minutes in every rally. And it will be incorrect to say the whole 30 minutes was dedicated to Jacob Zuma.
Majority of it was.
Jacob Zuma was almost less than 5% towards the end, and always on an extremely lighter note. I spoke about clinics, I spoke about water, I spoke about the type of houses we're going to build, I spoke about how we're going to eradicate unemployment, I spoke about how we're going to increase monies for the children, and flushing toilets, the roads. I spoke about all those issues, and you happened to be in one or two meetings where I spoke. So Zuma was not necessarily in our campaign, the core message, but we were not going to deny the fact that Zuma is seen as a stumbling block towards a transparent, progressive, prosperous South Africa. And we had to equally, highlight his weaknesses and also show our people how we'll deal with those weaknesses if we're to take over. Particularly that Zuma, is an epitome of corruption. And therefore, in the struggle to eradicate corruption, you ought to also demonstrate to our people that this is how corruption looks like, because in Zuma we see corruption, yeah.
If Zuma had to go tomorrow, and the ANC called you and said, come back, would you?
I think the ANC is rotten to the core. There is no rescuing it. I think it will have to die and then re-emerge through some different process and be called something different,
you think
and
it
not
will
necessarily
never,
the.
Be renewed, even
but
under
but
new
I'm trying to check who will come up with such a moral authority, who will come with such a charisma, who will come with a new posture and a new politics, which will reposition the ANC as a mass-based organization. And I can't come across such a collective. I mean, the proposals of the collective is Cyril deputized by Gwede and Nkosazana deputized by Didi Mabuza, and there is no inspiration of hope, both factions. And that's the end of the ANC, to be honest. And it is unfortunate. The ANC, and South Africa in particular, was the last country to be liberated in Africa. They didn't learn, in South Africa, rather, they didn't learn from other African countries who are traveling the same path that other African countries have traveled, particularly liberation movements. Yeah.
What has been common, and it's quite interesting that you bring up the continent, because there are so many lessons on the continent that we can take moving forward as a country. The personality cult is also common on the continent and beyond the continent.
Yes.
Where a leader becomes so powerful that nobody can hold them accountable. Who holds you accountable in the EFF?
The executive, called the Central Command Team of the EFF. Every Monday we've got what we call a war council, which run day-to-day activities of the EFF, and that's where decisions are taken. I want to give you an example that just yesterday in Parliament, I had said to the EFF leadership, we must support Pansi Tlakula, because I think she has served, she was found guilty of those wrongdoings, but she has learned her lessons. Let's give her a chance. Let's not destroy African women and all that. 2 minutes before Parliament, they called me and said, no, that's not going to happen. We're going to oppose her because she's corrupt, and we can't have this type of a corrupt person being a leader of a new institution, president. She's supposed to wait for almost 5 years for rehabilitation. It's too early. And I tried arguing, and I got defeated, and I accepted. So just the latest, I can just give you an example that I don't have my way all the time. I present my view, I discuss with the collective, and the collective says, well, we agree or we don't agree. And if it was a private company, I always tell many of them that some of you would have fired you, will be in CCMA and all those type of things, because how I so wish we can do things differently and my way. But the collective says, slow down. This is an organization. It's not a spaza shop. Everything must be subjected to a process.
So they rein you in?
Absolutely.
Why can't Zuma be reined in within the ANC? Do they fear him, or do they fear the unknown in the future without him?
No, they've collapsed the two into one. They've collapsed the president and the ANC into one person called Jacob Zuma. They're supposed to be the president and the organization. Then the organization must rein in the president, particularly when the president doesn't represent the organization very well. So you can't differentiate between Zuma and the ANC. And that's why at some point we were calling it Zuma African National Congress, because these are not two institutions. For instance, the office of the president in the Union Building supposed to be accountable to the ANC, because the ANC is the one that contests elections and deploys an individual. And when an individual misbehaves, the ANC is going to take the blame. So that's why at all times must reign on these individuals, must hold them accountable. But once you collapse the two into one, then you no longer have an authority over an individual. Patronage is the order of the day. Factionalism is the order of the day. Tribalism is the order of the day. And that's why the ANC is nowhere. We can't find the ANC. So even when you attack, you don't feel bad that you are taking a party that liberated you, a party of Nelson Mandela, because that party is not there. It can't be seen. It doesn't exist. It's what we call a personal rule. Rules are made according to what Zuma wants. They are designed to suit this person. An individual becomes more important than an institution called the ANC and all the state institutions. The NPA will rather die and Zuma survives. And it's not supposed to be like that.
But it was like that with Mbeki?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. We had an organization there called the ANC under the leadership of Malema Motlanthe. Every time that man spoke, even when you were in a shebeen, even when you were outside in the lawn, we used to be called. Malema is speaking, and we'll run to a television to go and listen. Why? Because now the ANC was speaking. We had the ANC. That's why we had Polokwane. The way Zuma and Mbeki were tearing each other apart, there was not going to be a conference of the ANC if there was no ANC under Mbeki. Who was the ANC? Who held the party together? Who's supposed to hold the party together is the Secretary General. This thing is called Toyota Corolla, a car, because of its engine. Without that engine, it's called a scrap. It's stuck there.
The Guptas have also been a feature in the ANC for years. Recently, we saw Zwelinzima Vavi speak about his personal experiences when he first encountered the Guptas and started to understand their power. Could you share a story about
I don't know them. I don't know the Gupta. I think I spoke, if you go to the archives, I spoke in 2011 in Rustenburg at the ANC manifesto launch of local government elections. And I said, in Polokwane, we didn't vote for a family. I thought we voted for a collective which is going to usher in economic freedom. And if people want to now control this country and government through an unelected family, we'll have a big problem. And then after that, I got an invitation from a Zuma's son that I must come and meet with the Guptas because of the things I said. They want to explain themselves. And we had a very strong Secretary General of the Youth League called Julius. Then I told her, and then she said, no, I'll write a letter to them. She wrote a letter to them and said, write a formal a request for a meeting and also propose the agenda. And then they disappeared because they wanted those things of telephones and arrangements to meet on the side. And I said, I can't do that. Since I've never heard from Guptas, I've never met Guptas, I've got no personal experience of them. But the people who are aligned to the Guptas, they become zombified. Their thinking stops. I mean, they are good leaders. We grew up singing about them. And once the Guptas capture them, they cease to think.
Wow.
They are no longer expressing them because they give them too much money.
How much money is enough for you to give up even your own identity, your own strength, what made you who you were?
You know, patronage, corruption, and bribery can make people do funny things and things that are out of character, things that we've never seen in these people. Some of them you even say, but not this one. I know this one to be the strong character. And I thought they were just giving them small amounts, but the information suggests they are given real figures because these people have got hard cash. They can't bank it. That's why the banks have got a problem with them because they can't explain where the money comes from. So once you have hard cash, and it's millions, if not billions of it, then you start dishing it out. Everyone you see, even before they open their mouth, they are given money. There was a security guard at the Gupta's house who was an EFF leader who gives us a narrative, clear detail of what is happening. One of the ministers couldn't even carry the bag. They had to be asked from the gate to come and help carry the bag from the house. Well, you know, these days they are very good with legal actions against.
So are you.
Yeah, well, I may not want to risk that. If I was in Parliament, I would have said it openly because I'm protected at that level. Yeah.
But just try and help us understand. When they say they're selling their businesses in South Africa, do you believe?
Oh, it's a waste of time. They are talking fronting. Firstly, they said they were selling. They were resigning as directors or something. Yes. Now they are selling their shares, but it's just a publicity stunt. It's a way of trying to fight back. They are going to front. Whoever is going to buy, they will front those people. Even if it's multinational companies, they will actually do it much easier and better with multinational companies because that's what they survive on, fronting, corruption, and all those. I don't believe them. There's nothing that comes from the mouth of the Guptas that I will believe because they are not genuine. Well, you know, there are people who captured our state long before the Ruperts have done it, the Oppenheimers have done it, but they were, you know, decent about it, and you know. But these ones are just reckless. They just do it on our face, and they ill-treat people that if you don't do this, if you don't jump, you'll be dealt with tomorrow. And people get dealt with the following day, as they said. And it becomes painful like that. Because capitalism by its own nature is a parasitic system. It survives through sucking blood out of institutions and governments. So it is like that. We can't expect anything from any business. But to make it so obvious, then you are inviting all of us to now start fighting you.
Do you think they are working on the people who are being spoken about when it comes to succession in the ANC? Because once Zuma is gone, they are so linked to the Zumas, or at least it is perceived that they're so linked to the Zumas. Will they still survive beyond Jacob
No, if
Zuma?
Nkosazana becomes president, what is the difference? Because I'm not saying there's no difference because she was married to Zuma. No, and in her own right, as a politician, she surrendered herself to them. Remember, they just organized some big event to honor her as the person of the year or something, South African of the year, where Zuma stayed there the whole night without having any role to play. That's where they were launching Nkosazana's campaign for president of South Africa. So if you want any evidence, boom, that's evidence. And who is Didi Mabuza? That's a Premier League. Who is Premier League? It's a structure within the ANC created by the Guptas to look after their interest everywhere. It's Didi Mabuza, it's Supra Maumapelu, it's Ace Makhashule. Ace Makhashule is the one who gave them Zwane. Zwane is the one who gave them the dairy farm in the Free State. So it can't. There's no one who can actually shift away from them. And Cyril, Cyril
he
won't.
will say he's got his own money. He doesn't need the Guptas.
That's the problem, to have a businessman who's going to preside over the state. Who is Cyril? Cyril is a product of the Oppenheimers. They single-handedly made him and wanted to impose him on the country through Mandela. They said Mandela must make Cyril deputy president. And when it didn't succeed, Cyril decided to throw his toys and then left the ANC because he wanted to capture this country long before the arrival of the Guptas for the Oppenheimers. So Cyril is the same thing. We don't need a businessman. If Cyril has got his own money, let him go and eat it with his wife and his family. We don't care about their money. We care about a politician that will put the poor people of this country before any other thing. It's not about who's got the money. It's about who's got the political will.
Do you think Pravin will go? Do you think he will be?
Well, he will go. And I think that Zuma must be a man enough. He must stop being a coward. If he wants to fire him, let him fire him, so that we deal with the consequences of a fired Pravin. Now, when we go to sleep and we wake up, we don't know what's going to happen in this country. This uncertainty creates serious economic problems because the investors are no longer sure whether we can invest our money in this country and this money will be looked after by this credible man, because tomorrow we're not sure if this man will still be there. Let Zuma take a decision and stand by his decision, but he must know there will be consequences. There's going to be a reshuffle, of course. And most of those who are now are taking openly, I think they got a tip-off. It's not because they are principled. It's not because they are fearless. No, they already know that they are not going to make it in the reshuffle. They're going to be removed. And now they are starting taking they're taking an anti-Zuma posture, so that when he removes them, they go around and say, no, we're removed for standing against corruption. But, I mean, how can Julius be an anti-corruption man when a month or two ago is the one that said a swimming pool is a fire pool? Even when the whole country said, it's a swimming pool, this is how a swimming pool looks like, the man was not prepared to listen. Now he knows he's not going to make it. He starts screaming that no, he's the most fearless person, Zuma is a problem, and all those type of. They are not genuine. They now know that they won't make it either way, because Cyril Blade, the chairperson of the Communist Party, the Zokwana, they are with Cyril and Gwede. They are in that faction. So it's not a principled move. It's a factional move. So either way, we're in a crisis. I mean, you just told me that people say Cyril has got his own money. He's a successful businessman. Why would a communist support a capitalist like that? Why would a communist support a man who was the architect of a murder that was committed against workers in Marikana? So there's nothing genuine about this. That's why I'm saying either way, the ANC cannot be rescued.
Do you think Brian Malema could potentially be the next finance minister?
Well, he was a Gupta preference. He still remains a Gupta preference. But the way he has gone about it, he has compromised himself. I mean, to come so openly in defense of the Guptas and the corruption that is going on in Eskom. I loved Brian. Even when Brian went to Eskom, I was so happy that, I think we're going to find solution there. But only to realize that, no, the man has always been a mess. Even in Transnet, the man messed up. Somebody was saying to me, you must go and look at the Gupta-related companies' invoices at Transnet. they all talk about professional fees, 20 million, 50 million, 10 million, professional fees. Different companies linked to them. What professional duty did they perform or task? No one knows. That's how they are taking money out of this institution. There is nothing tangible and credible. There's nothing practical they've done which you can touch or see with your naked eye. Yet they are claiming millions of rands. They did that under Brian. They went to ESCOM with him. Actually, they moved him to ESCOM and then started buying coal mines, uranium mines for nuclear energy, preparation for nuclear energy, those coal mines for deals in ESCOM. You know what painful thing they did was to terminate contracts between those companies and ESCOM so that those companies can collapse. When they are at a point of collapse, they go and make an offer and say to them, if you sell to us, we can secure the deal of providing ESCOM with a coal. It's a mess like that. And to have Brian now being a minister of finance, a man who gave them ESCOM like that, he's just going to take the treasury into their house. I'm sorry, South Africa. I think the money is going to be printed at Sex and Wealth. Reserve Bank is going to be shifted there. Everything is going. They are tired of stealing it through. You see, this logistic, I'm telling you, they have to collapse this company, go and capture it, and then come and apply for a tender. It takes too long. They just want to get it fresh, still hot. And they can only do it if they capture Treasury and then control the Reserve Bank.
Recently, when you're speaking about the investigation by the Hawks of Pravin Gordhan, you said that you believe he should have gone and subjected himself to whatever questioning, or at least presented himself, in order not to destroy the integrity of state structures such as the Hawks. You went on to say that the office of the presidency should be protected and not undermined. But you continuously say President Jacob Zuma is a criminal, despite the fact that he's never been found guilty in a court of law of any crime. Isn't that a contradiction?
No. The presidency and Zuma are two different things. The presidency is the office, and that office has got certain powers. And such powers include, amongst others, the appointment of finance minister. So if today president appoints finance minister and the markets collapse the rand and tell the president who to appoint, you are creating a problem for that office. It's not about Zuma, it's about that office. We might be happy and celebrate today because it's done to Zuma. But we're setting a precedent where we're going to have a toothless president. We're going to have a powerless president who will not appoint the Minister of Finance as long as the Rupert family is not happy. That I will never agree with. So I might have problems with Zuma as a person, but I don't have a problem with the powers of that office. That's why when Zuma appoints ministers, I can just say he made a stupid mistake. I don't think this is a good appointment like we did with Zwane and Van Rooyen and all that. But I cannot agree that a white family should go and erode the power of the president to appoint Minister of Finance. So there's no contradiction there. Zuma as an individual, you might say he was never found guilty rather by the court of law, but the public protector and confirmed now by the constitutional court that the man unduly benefited and therefore he must pay the money.
Yes.
And when I called him criminal, and when I called the ANC corrupt and all those, the courts have said it is within your right to say so.
Yes.
Yes.
But he has, anyway,
I agree with you.
Let's
It's a correct
Yes.
point. He has never been found guilty. Let the courts will find him guilty. He's avoiding, by the way, 700 plus charges. And if he was not guilty, he would have faced those charges like we have done when we're accused of corruption.
You say that Pravin Gordhan has been captured by white monopoly capital. It's a very provocative statement to make. Why is it that you don't haul him, use your seat in Parliament, haul him in front of Parliament, and hold him accountable? You can do that.
Well, we do that all the time. We're the first people to raise Pravin's interest in the banking sector and other entities long before. And it doesn't mean that I don't have a right to criticize
I'm saying,
Pravin.
why don't you use, first of all, why don't you use Parliament to hold him accountable so that the nation can know what interests he's got where, or lay a charge against him?
Yes, Parliament is another sphere where you can engage him, but I can also engage him in public. He's a public figure, he's a minister.
Follow through with going to Parliament
Absolutely, absolutely. We have actually wrote a letter questioning his interest in business and whether those business interests do not create a conflict of interest for him. Yes, so I don't just speak, I also make a follow-up, and I'm also in contact with Pravin's advisors. We've been having heated exchanges, yet friendly, about how we feel about Pravin's. They've tried to define those shares and how they were bought and all those type of things. Fair enough. But the point I'm making is that we don't just speak. We follow through, and we even speak to relevant authorities, particularly where we can get a clarity. So let us not commit another mistake of creating a personality cult in Pravin, that when Pravin is being criticized, therefore it means you are with Zuma. No, I'm not with Zuma. I even said if I was to choose a president between Zuma and Pravin, I will choose Pravin.
Pravin is the
so I will never agree that Zuma factionalists should use my criticism of Pravin to justify their nonsense and even think for a second I'm with them. I will never be with them. I mean, how come can I choose my money's DA and then later on choose Zuma against Pravin? It will never happen. I will never do that. But it doesn't take my right to criticize Pravin, particularly as a minister, as a public figure. I still hold a strong view that he should have gone to the Hawks. And even when I meet him, I will tell him that you should have gone to the Hawks. I know you don't have a case to answer. I've been there before. But because when you are gone, Pravin, the Hawks must remain. And the Hawks must still have the power to call anyone they so wish. It doesn't, I even want them at a point of abusing power to call anyone, and all of us must still respond. Because we've got the Constitution, we'll expose them. But to just dismiss them like that, like they're so useless like that, Pravin might think legally is right, but is creating a wrong precedence for this country. Because somebody, a hardcore criminal will say, if Pravin can do it, I can do it. Who is Pravin after all? We're all equal. They will use that to undermine our institution. I'm more interested in the institution than individuals.
It's very clear that the, I would say, traditional home, political home, for many South African voters is still the ANC.
Absolutely.
Despite the fact that they have made so many mistakes and they continue to self-destruct. Without a failing ANC, how do you as the EFF and all the opposition parties, because all the opposition parties are actually benefiting from failures of the ANC, how do you sustain growth?
Without a failing ANC, there won't be EFF. So that question won't arise. We'll all be in Mandela's party.
You'll go back?
No, I'm saying without the failing ANC. We're not talking what is going to happen in the future. That the ANC won't be there. It's already on its deathbed. So if there was no failing ANC, there will not be COPE. There would not be EFF. We'll all be still fighting those battles inside the ANC. Because like you said, it was a natural choice. It was unheard of for any of us to choose anything other than the ANC, Today you can choose anything and no one can blame you for choosing a different party. Why? Because the ANC has failed and the EFF has come in and has gone back to basics to actually say this is where the charter wanted us to be, and therefore let us pick up the Freedom Charter from the dustbin, clean it up, and continue to advocate what the Freedom Charter stands for.
Just humor me for a minute and imagine that a miracle happens and the ANC elects a credible leader, puts together an outstanding NEC, starts to build this country's economy. What will be the purpose of the EFF?
Yeah, you are talking about the EFF. That imagination, I just see the EFF. I can't even see the ANC in that example. That example doesn't even fit the ANC.
My worry is that...
there's, the point is, there's no point going back. There will never be a point going back. So it doesn't help. And they keep on proving us right. Look at Swan. The EFF takes the votes and give to the DA. In less than a week or so, the ANC people fight physically with the EFF people in the Tshwane municipality. And when you see it from a distance, you're like, this was a correct decision. Because there will never be an ANC that engages in such a thuggerish hooliganism type of a conduct. All the time. After giving the votes to the DA, Zwane says, we're going to investigate the banks. And then they come and say, no, that's not true. And you're like, this vindicates us. We were correct. Imagine we had voted for the ANC and all this mess is going on. It means you are approving of it. It means you are encouraging it. You just voted against the ANC. In the Western Cape, the ANC is dying badly. It releases a statement, the second statement to denounce the first statement, the third statement to denounce the denouncing of the first statement. And you are like, wow, we've taken a correct decision. We can't be part of this mess. So that imagination you are having, I don't see it happening because of all these shenanigans that are permanently taking place in the ANC.
Come 2019, the ANC will be even weaker and they will probably call you again.
Let me tell you.
This time, they're humble, they're not arrogant like they were in the local government elections, and they offer you a ministerial position.
Well, I don't need any ministerial position. Let me tell you, my imagination of 2019 is such that the ANC goes below 50%, the EFF increases to 10%, and the ANC needs the EFF, the DA needs the EFF. The first offer I'm going to give to the ANC is the merger. The EFF and the ANC must come together. And then we collapse the name ANC. We close Lituli House. We go and open headquarters of this new party in Soweto, where our people are. And then we start afresh.
With who? Who would you like to start afresh with? The people that are currently in the ANC?
No, it's okay. I won't mind working with Malema Motlanthe, for instance. I won't mind working with Winnie Mandela, for instance. But the merger, we have come on, next door here, more than 90% who's still leading the country. The merger will have to produce a unique leadership which will appeal to our people. Because the name ANC is going to remind our people of their painful past. There is no EFF joining the ANC. There's no such a thing. We'll rather talk about the establishment of a new party completely, and then we'll all leave our history there. This is the beginning of a new era.
Julius, thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.